Subway now has breakfast. Enjoy the steak and cheese omelet on toasty foot-long flatbread and spice it up with fiery Chipotle Southwest sauce and jalapenos. And don't forget to grab lunch to go too, like the $5 foot-long BLT. Try it with banana peppers and ranch, only at Subway. Subway, eat fresh. The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, the second podcast we're taping today because the weather stinks. So why not tape podcasts when we have bad weather? From hitfix.com, one of our favorite TV critics, and we had to have him on because Mad Men premiered last night. So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about TV stuff for about, I'd say, 26, 27 minutes. And then the last part of the podcast will be devoted to Mad Men. In case you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil anything that happened. But we're saving all the Mad Men talk for the end. But now, on the Subway Fresh Tech Hotline, Alan Sepinwall, what's happening?
I'm very excited to talk a little bit about that Mad Men show.
Well, first of all, you went to Comic-Con last week. How long were you there for?
I was there for 4.5 days.
Do women go to this? Is it just 100% dudes?
No, women definitely go to this because it's sort of a chance they get dressed up in costume. They can sort of be in among a crowd of guys who are, I'll say nerdy because I'm a nerd, so they can sort of feel a little more confident in that crowd than they maybe can in some other places. It's the gender mix, I would say, is maybe 60-40, 70-30.
Wow. I'm shocked by that. I would have guessed like 95-5.
No.
Up until about, I would say, maybe 2 years ago, all of a sudden this became mainstream. What happened?
Just the movie studios and the TV networks realized, hey, if you bring this stuff, if you bring a show or a movie down to Comic-Con, the fans will do half the marketing work for you.
Right. I remember not even knowing about it. I think Entourage went there one year. What was that, like 4 or 5 years ago?
Something like that. This was only my second con, but it's crazy.
Yeah. And it's San Diego, and they basically flood San Diego with people.
Yeah, it's everywhere you go, you see people in costume, people wearing the badges. It's hard to find anyone who's in that part of town who is not there for the con.
So give us your biggest highlight of the 4.5 days.
Well, let's see. I moderated a couple of panels, so it's sort of nice to be on stage in front of like 4,500 screaming people, and I got to see a preview of Scott Pilgrim, which I'm really looking forward to. So that was great. 4,500?
Yeah. What panel was that?
I moderated Chuck, and I moderated Sons of Anarchy for FX, and that's actually not the biggest room. There's a bigger room for like the movies, where they did Avengers and stuff, and I think that seats about 6,000. What was considered like the marquee event of Comic-Con? The marquee event was definitely in the big room. They unveiled the cast of the Avengers. Robert Downey Jr. came out and he introduced all the different actors who were going to be in that. And who was in it? Anybody I know? Well, Scarlett Johansson's going to be in it again because she was in Iron Man. Chris Evans, I don't know if you know him. He'll be Captain America. So they're going to make a bunch of different superhero movies and then bring everybody together. Jeremy Renner from The Hurt Locker is going to be playing Hawkeye, the guy with the bow and arrow. So it's a pretty good cast. How dare you not think that I know who Chris Evans is? He's Boston's own Chris Evans. Sorry. We know who all the Boston guys are. I actually like Chris Evans. I don't think I think his career could have gone in a couple better directions. I'm not sure what he should have done differently, but I feel like he should be more famous than he is. Well, he's going to be the superhero guy now, although he's also in Scott Pilgrim, and he's really funny in that. He's only got a couple scenes, but he's great. Pardon my ignorance, but what's Scott Pilgrim? Scott Pilgrim, it's a comic book series that just finished up. It's about a guy in a band in his early 20s in Toronto, and he gets in all these sort of weird video game-style combat fights with the ex-boyfriends of the girl he's trying to date. Oh. And it's Michael Cera from Arrested Development. That sounds good. I'm sure there was a panel trying to figure out what the F happened to Heroes and how that show lost all its momentum in 2 days. No? There was no Heroes this time. There was no loss this time. It was sort of a changing of the guard kind of thing. Heroes,
that still ranks among one of the greatest mysteries in recent television history. How that show went from having the momentum it did to just being a complete afterthought.
Well, I mean, it was this show. It was like sort of all set up and all set up and all set up, and when you finally got to what they were setting up, it was terrible, and people kind of realized that.
What could they have done differently? Was there one major mistake, or was it was doomed from the get-go?
I think they fell a little too in love with themselves and thought they could do no wrong, and so when they got to the end of that first season and they needed someone to tell them, guys, you need a much bigger climax to what you've been going towards than this. And they didn't, and then they sort of just kept, and they also didn't want to kill anybody off, so they kept bringing these characters back who got less and less interesting over time.
I rode the Heroes train for about 14 episodes, and I think I had the DVDs. It was after I tried to catch up on them during the summer, and I just didn't care. I don't know what happened. I don't know what triggered the apathy. But right around 13, 14, I was just like, you know what? I don't really care. There's other stuff I'd rather watch. And that was it for me and Heroes. You'll be happy to know I'm one episode in on Breaking Bad. Thank you.
Finally.
Thank you.
Finally, Bill.
Yeah. It's going to happen.
It only took you 3 years.
It's going to happen. I had to catch up on these 30 for 30 rough cuts, so now that's done. But, I mean, now there's good TV. Because now Mad Men's starting. When does Dexter start?
Dexter starts sometime in September.
Oh, so we got some time for that.
Yeah. Dexter's back in September. Sons of Anarchy's back in September. Frankly, for my purposes, too much TV because there's all these shows I write about 1 million words about.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, following your Twitter feed, it's the summer. You've been reaching with a couple of your recaps.
Well, I mean, in the summer, I sort of bust out some old shows on DVD. I get that.
Oh, no, not that. I like that stuff. It was the new stuff that you're reviewing. I'm like, poor Sepinwall. He needs fall TV season to start.
Yeah, it's a little bit slow right now, but it's about to start getting crazy. I mean, Mad Men alone, it consumes like days and days out of my week. I
mean, and thank God for Mad Men.
Yes.
Because I don't think really any of the summer fare is nearly on that caliber. Although I will say, and I even tweeted this Piper Perabo show.
Yeah.
Kind of the mindless fare I'm looking for at 11 o'clock at night on USA.
Yeah, exactly. It's not deep. It's not like addictive, but it's fun, and she's really kind of good in it.
Did you like my Chauncey Billups comparison for her?
Yeah, although I don't know that she ever got quite the hype that Chauncey did. I mean, even at the time, Coyote Ugly was kind of a joke, right?
It was, but at the same time, see, everybody forgets this. In the months leading up, there was some legitimate buzz for it. And I think people thought she was going to be the breakout star. And I remember people were excited about Bridget Moynihan in that movie. And then it just came and went.
Yeah.
Well, and she's been in some other stuff.
Yeah, Moynihan's in a show this year, so.
Oh, what is that?
She's doing. It's for CBS. It's Blue Bloods. It's her, Tom Selleck, and Donnie Wahlberg about a family of like cops in the NYPD.
Oh, see, now I have to watch that because Boston's own Donnie Wahlberg is in that. At least
they're all
give that
playing
a
New Yorkers.
I got to support Donnie. All right, before we get into Mad Men, give us, because I want to save Mad Men for the very end because there might be people who haven't seen it. And we'll give everybody a big-ass spoiler alert. I hate this whole spoiler thing, but I get it because, especially with people, the troops overseas, stuff like that, they got to catch up later, so we got to be careful.
Yeah, we saved the Mad Men talk for the end of our podcast, too. So.
But if you live in America and it's the summer and you have a TV and a DVR and you claim to care about Mad Men and it ran last night and you didn't watch it, you have to have a really good reason, in my opinion. First of all, they run it all day. Second of all, we have DVRs. You better either be vacationing with your family or in a hospital, or I just don't think there's any excuse not to see it. We know when it's coming. They have the date. It's going to be July 25th. So don't throw the spoiler thing at me. Do you agree?
Pretty much. I know some people like to sort of let them build up on the DVR and watch a bunch in a row, and I can appreciate that.
So we can't talk about the show because these people are selfish and they have to build it up?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's at a certain point, if you're doing that, you have to decide for yourself, all right, I'm just shutting myself off from all media that might be discussing it.
Okay. Before we get into the Mad Men thing, top 5 shows you're most excited about this fall, because we have a huge. It's almost like a player retiring. It's like when Bird retired from the Celtics in '92, having that vacancy now in the schedule. We need to fill it somehow.
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me this. I've been thinking about it all morning. Last year was a really good year for news shows. You know, we got Community, we got Modern Family, we got Justified, Good Wife, a bunch of other things. This year, so far, the stuff I've been watching before the TV Critics Press Tour that starts tomorrow, there have been a few really good things. I like Terriers. It's a private eye show that FX is doing with Donal Logue, created by the guy who wrote the Ocean's 11 movies. I'm really looking forward to Boardwalk Empire, which is the HBO show that Scorsese's producing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those guys in that show.
Steve Buscemi and Omar from The Wire and Martin Scorsese and the number 2 guy from The Sopranos. How can that not be good?
Yeah, it's super duper expensive, correct?
Yeah. They rebuilt the Atlantic City Boardwalk circa 1925 in a parking lot in Brooklyn.
Right.
So that's not cheap.
I would compare the HBO to the Mets. Maybe not quite the same success they had in the 90s, but still throwing money around left and right.
Yeah, although it seems they're finally starting to make a comeback here. So I really
True Blood's been, would you say, biggest hit they've had since when?
Yeah, True Blood is by
Sopranos?
far the biggest hit. I'm not too into vampires, so it's not one of my favorite shows, but that's been working out very well for them, and I love The Pacific. I really like Treme, and I can't wait for Boardwalk.
What happened with Treme?
What do you mean?
Didn't really capture the public's imagination for whatever reason.
I mean, the thing with Treme was, and The Wire didn't really capture the public's imagination, until years later, and people keep finding it on DVD, but The Wire always sort of had that crime story element to it, so even if you weren't necessarily inclined to watch a show about sociological commentary about the state of the American city, you get to watch cops chase drug dealers and all of that.
Yeah.
This is more of just a character piece, so you really have to be into a little more of a slow burn. You have to really like jazz music or care about food or just the city of New Orleans in general. So it's much more low-key, so it's not surprising that not as many people are talking about it as talked about The Wire.
I watched like 20 minutes of the first episode and just made the decision that emotionally I wasn't ready.
Okay.
I'm not ready to make the commitment yet.
That's fine.
It'll happen at some point, and maybe it'll be after 2 seasons, or maybe it'll be after the whole show's done. But just week by week to just go into New Orleans for an hour and in the food and the city, I don't know. It's not. It seems like the type of show you want to watch like 4 at once and bang them out. Yeah,
exactly. That's the way a David Simon show kind of works best.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, keep going with shows you're excited about for the fall.
Let's see. I mean, again, it's excited. The shows I already mentioned are ones I'm really psyched for. Fox has the show called Lone Star that could be really good, or it could be one that's good for an episode and a half, and then they have no more story to tell.
Yeah.
It's like a con man in Texas decides that he basically wants to try to turn his con identity into his real identity and all the problems that come from that. And John Voight's in that, and David Keith. I think David Keith or Keith David. It's the white one.
White David Keith. Officer and a Gentleman David Keith.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Not They Live Keith David.
Right. Okay.
I always confuse those two because other than the race thing, they're the exact same actor.
Right.
So that's pretty good. I like Ride Along, but that's not till mid-season.
This sounds bleak.
There's a bunch of shows I've seen that are like solid, and if I happen to put them on, they'll be fine. There's Detroit 187, which is a cop show with Michael Imperioli. I thought that was very well done. But, if you're looking for a Lost replacement on the networks, you're going to be waiting a while.
Well, is there a show out there right now that if it had its final series episode would have the kind of publicity and acclaim, all that stuff that Lost got for its final show?
Well, Mad Men would get the publicity, but, Mad Men is watched by a fraction of the people who watch Lost.
And it's also 4 years away from ending.
Probably, yeah. The AMC's not letting that one go anytime soon.
So is there like an end-of-the-run great show? Breaking Bad's got a couple years left. Yeah,
I don't think that there is one out there right now that has captured the public's imagination the way Lost did. Lost was kind of a once-in-a-generation thing in that it was like mass appeal and geek appeal at the same time. So you had the people who just loved it casually and the people who obsessed about every little detail of it.
Right.
When Lost came to Comic-Con, that was like a rock concert. Just everyone went bananas for it.
And I do think just TV in general is becoming more splintered. I think it's hard to reach a ton of people. And even if you looked at the TV ratings for that show, the only hit show that the ratings fell every year, basically.
Well, no, every show's ratings are falling every year. There was a point at which CSI was pulling close to 30 million viewers. Now it's somewhere in, I think, the high teens. Lost at its peak was 20 million. Towards the end, it was like somewhere between 8 and 12, depending on the episode. So there's so many more options out there, and also so many other ways to watch between on demand and Hulu and DVRs and everything, that it's going to be really hard to find a show that everybody watches in concentrated numbers again, the way they did even 5 or 6 years ago.
I guess 2.5 Men would be interesting just from a sociological standpoint to watch the final episode. See how they handle Charlie.
Possibly he gets arrested. There's Charlie Sheen's life and career has offered so many possibilities for us.
Did you? I didn't know until I did my mailbag last week that the kid from that show makes $500K an episode.
Well, his name is in the title. You can't have the show without half a man, because otherwise it's just two creepy guys in their 40s making sex jokes.
It's amazing leverage, though.
Yep.
And you think obviously they can't replace him. They can't do the two Darrens in Bewitched.
Nope.
So his agent goes in every year and is like, look, it's going to be $500K for whatever his name is to come back. You got to pay the price or he's out. He's going to do Broadway.
I just remember, did you see The Rookie with Dennis Quaid?
Yes.
He's the kid in that. He's the cute kid in that. And I remember watching that and saying, he's really funny. I think he's going to have a career, and he damn sure did.
Wow. I felt that same way about Hayden Panettiere and Remember the Titans.
Yep.
It's like, we'll be hearing from this one again.
Yeah, I watched Remember the Titans, and I thought one day she's going to be dating an 8-foot-tall boxer.
from Russia. Is that still happening?
I don't know.
Louis C.K.'s new show.
Oh, I love that. That is fabulous.
Getting some buzz.
Yes. That is a show. He writes it, he directs it, he edits it. I think he sews the costumes for it. It's an entire comedy done on a super low budget, filtered entirely through this sort of self-hating, misanthropic point of view, and it's really cool.
Would you say that's the show that you're getting the most emails right now about, or is there something else?
Other than Mad Men, because, in the summer Mad Men dominates, Louis is definitely the show that people seem most pleased with.
Because I had this mailbag thing where I tried to figure out the funniest guy each year, and then 2010 I was saying it was wide open. And then, it's 7 months in, you don't want to say who the favorite is, but I do think he is in the running for potentially funniest guy for 2010. Because that show is resonating. Now we'll see if it translates to ratings, but definitely getting a lot of emails about it. It's getting huge internet buzz. The ratings have been pretty good, right?
They've been fine. And again, the show is so dirt cheap. I think he said in an interview they do every episode for like $300,000. Right. And basically, FX hands him a check for $300,000 and then leaves him alone. And they know nothing about what is going to be in the episode until they get a finished copy of it.
Now, did he do it that way because he did not like his experience on his HBO show?
I don't know if it was so much the HBO show, which I didn't like, but just I think the idea in general that stand-up comics, they make the really successful ones like him and Gaffigan and when he tours Chris Rock, they make so much money doing stand-up that they don't want to bother having to deal with network interference if they can avoid it. So he's like, look, I will do this if you leave me alone to do it my way, and I will take less money.
The other breakout guy this year has been Daniel Tosh.
Yes.
Who... the ratings that he's pulling down right now, he's getting almost 2.5 million people.
Yeah, which for Comedy Central is really good.
Yeah, and that show costs about $2.
Yep.
Do you watch that show, or you're not into that?
I watch it some of the time. It's not like I have an appointment for it, but if I'm channel surfing and it's on, it's funny. Half the time I haven't seen the videos he's showing, and I think the idea of like bringing back the famous, sort of the infamous web people to get a second shot is a very smart idea.
I think it's very clever.
Yeah.
And it's a must DVR for me, and I think the first 9 minutes of the show are about as reliable as anything right now.
Yes.
It's always good. It's always funny. There's always at least one clip that makes me laugh, and he's super mean. He's like internet anonymous message board mean. Only he's there with his name on it.
Well, if it's a show about web, if you read the comments on YouTube, he's capturing the spirit of it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I would say those are the two guys. Now, Entourage, you out?
Oh, I am so out. every year HBO will send the first couple of episodes, and because I'm a masochist, I will put them on just to see if somehow the show has gotten better. And I get to the second episode, and the big conflict is Vince got a haircut.
Right.
No.
You didn't like that conflict?
That's Entourage in a nutshell. The stakes are so just ridiculously low. Yeah.
It seems like they've just made the decision to just play it safe, which is fine because people are watching it.
Yep.
There's a lot of cameos now. They're always working 2-3 people in.
Yep.
They have the what do you call it when you have the sponsor? You integrate the sponsors.
Product placement.
Yeah, you got some major product placement now.
Yeah.
And it just seems like that's going to be the show now.
Yeah, and they got Scott Conn now, and he's in the Hawaii Five-0 remake, so he's suddenly busy.
I'll say this: when Scott Conn is blowing people off the screen with his acting, it's not a great sign.
Yeah, no, I mean the same thing happens in Hawaii Five-0 because that's a show built around this guy Alex O'Loughlin that CBS is convinced is going to be a star, and they keep putting him in shows. And so they built this entire show around him. And if you watch the pilot, Scott Conn just murders him. He is so much better.
You know what you call that? The Dermot Mulrooney effect. when people, the studios or whatever, they're, no, this guy's going to be a star, I'm telling you. Yeah. And then everybody they act with just murders him. The Entourage thing, I don't know. I really think they would have been better off like 3 years ago just getting rid of Vince and all his friends and just having Ari find a new entourage. Yeah, I want to know like what would have been the downside for that, and preferably African American. I think would have been a neat wrinkle.
Yeah, but again, it's such a lazy show because they know that they have this one thing that they do, and enough people will watch it that they don't care. So,
but if I'm watching it, that's the part I don't get. Like, so you don't watch it, you're out.
Yes.
Okay.
But I also watch so much more TV than the average human being that sometimes my threshold for being out is a lot lower than yours might be.
Maybe it's an indictment of how bad TV is, because I always watch it. I look forward to it. I can't remember the last time that they've had an episode where I was like, whoa. I think the last good run that it had where I just remember really enjoying it, think it was clever, was the Martin Landau when he was playing the Bob Evans character.
Is that something you might be interested in?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that guy.
Yeah.
And just in general, and now the politics this year with somebody's trying to steal Vince away, that could potentially be interesting. I will say though that the one person on that show I think who did themselves a great service was the girl from the OC.
Yeah, Autumn Reeser.
Yeah.
She's very good. She's on a show this year that's another pilot that I like, No Ordinary Family. It's like Michael Chiklis as a family of superheroes, and she's like the confidant of the wife. So
gotta love Michael Chiklis, who's played this renegade badass cop, and now is playing a superhero, and he's like 5'3".
Yeah, you can't get over the height thing.
I can't. I just can't. How does he keep doing it?
The Shield is one of the great shows of all time, and you won't watch it because of the man's height.
I have it. I have the whole box set now. That's another one on my list. When am I going to watch all this TV? Maybe I should just go to an island for 3 months and watch all the shows.
You keep talking about how barren summer is. This is the ideal time to watch Breaking Bad and the Shield, Bill. Come on.
Breaking Bad. I know I'm going to enjoy that. I'm almost like I'm saving that. It's like how you have that one last piece of cake you don't want to eat in the fridge.
Yeah.
It's gotten to that point. All right, let's talk about Mad Men.
Go for it.
First of all, did you do the thing where you've seen 5 episodes?
No, I've seen only one. I'm still waiting to find out if I will get any more in advance because I'm kind of screwed if I don't.
Okay. So from this point on, we're going to be talking about the first episode of Season 4 of Mad Men, and that will be the end of the podcast. So if you want to jump off now, no hard feelings. We'll see you later. As for everybody else, I liked it. Thought it was good. Typical, didn't knock your socks off first episode, but kind of laid the groundwork for where we're going, right?
Yeah, exactly. The premieres are usually table setters, and I like this one because it does feel like when they move to the new firm, things are different. It's not just like they redesigned the set. It's the dynamics are all different, and Don is in a really bad place, and they're setting up some cool stuff.
Yeah, and the whole wrinkle with his wife and the new husband living in his old house.
Yeah,
a good one. I liked it. Surprised by the new husband though, because they had set him up as like this swinging finance, whatever he does, where he's got cash.
He worked for Rockefeller, and what happened is it's now Thanksgiving of '64, and in the summer of '64, Rockefeller thought he was going to get the Republican nomination for president, and then he basically got his tail end handed to him at the convention because people didn't like that he divorced his wife and married another woman who had left her husband, and so it's not said there, but it's kind of implied that his career is not in a good place right now.
Oh, so you just did some major inferring. You just inferred the hell out of that. Because I didn't have that background, so I didn't know that.
Yeah. But they spent so much time last year talking about how joined at the hip he was to Rockefeller.
Yeah. Well, I didn't remember the part about Rockefeller's career going down. I did, though. You would be proud of me, though. I did catch the Mississippi thing that made me know that it was 1964 Thanksgiving.
Very nicely done.
Thank you. I was excited about that. And the reason I caught it was because we had this rough cut for 30 for 30 about Marcus Dupree. And so that was fresh in my mind because I just watched him. Marcus Dupree he came up to prominence in high school in the same town that the Mississippi burning thing happened. So I specifically remember that incident. Now, I don't know if I would have gotten the 64 date if I hadn't just seen that rough cut. And by the way, that might be the second best one of the whole series, but we'll save that for another time. So Don Draper, in a dark place.
When the son of a prostitute who spent his entire childhood being called whorechild is now hiring hookers to slap him around, that's not good.
No. See, I threw it out on Twitter that it was a hooker, and some people threw back the whole, how do we know it was a hooker? How do we know it wasn't just a married woman? Thought that was interesting.
No, I'm pretty sure there's a discussion of money, and I think he takes his wallet out when they're first
That's what I saw. I thought it was definitely a hooker, no question.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, the hooker a little more. They had him in 1964. It wasn't. I think they had classier ones back then. Correct?
Yeah, no. I mean, last year we saw Roger briefly dating one, and earlier in the episode, Pete makes that joke about how they can expense the two actresses if they claim that they're hookers.
Right.
The funniest line of the episode.
What else did you like about episode 1?
I liked sort of seeing Peggy be more assertive. I liked seeing Joan now have an office and be in control of things. I like seeing Don mess up with a client. I mean, that almost never happens where he has a pitch go as badly as that one went.
Yeah.
So I don't know that how much I'm going to want to watch of Betty though, unless she starts being a little less horrible. Because I mean, when she shoves the marshmallow in Sally's face, that's just brutal.
I loved it. I like Betty that they've now positioned as one of the historic ice queens in the history of television.
Yeah, but when she was with Don, you could feel some level of sympathy because Don is no prize himself and he treated her badly.
Right.
Now she's got everything she ever wanted and she actually seems icier than ever before.
But that's a good thing in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because, I think you see that in the upper class levels sometimes. You see the housewives who had everything they ever thought they'd want, but they're still unhappy, and that's when they become ice queens. I like that part. We got Joan back, which is nice.
Yes.
Looks like although she's kind of in the peripheral sense now, but at some point she'll be.
Well, she didn't get a ton to do, but again, there's sort of this implication that before she was just the head of secretaries, and now everyone recognizes that Joan is the key to keeping the whole operation going.
You know what's interesting about Mad Men? I was thinking about it last night. I like all of these characters. They don't have, 90210 always used to have the Andrea plot. Be like, no, here's the scene with Andre. This is.
Are we comparing Mad Men to 90210?
No, but I'm saying you go through the line who was the one in The Sopranos that when they'd have the plot? Well, in the later years,
maybe.
In the later years, it was AJ. Although his acting was so bad, it was almost enjoyable. But shows usually have a couple characters that are like, all right, they're just pushing this along, and now hopefully we'll get to the good characters soon. Mad Men, I really like everybody.
Yeah, and there's always that sense that every time they do a spotlight on somebody, you wish that you could see more of them, but then that would be at the cost of somebody else.
Yeah. I don't like that you down my 90210 Mad Men comparison. I think there's a lot of similarities. Two great dramas. Dylan McKay had demons like Don Draper did. You had Roger Sterling and Brandon Walsh. I think there's some good comparisons there. I don't know. I'm reaching. So where does this go? Season 4.
Well, now we're deeper into the 60s. The firm needs to start getting some other clients. Don needs to put himself out there more, which we know he hates to do. So that's going to be interesting to see a more public Don Draper. I don't know if they're going to revisit the whole, Dick Whitman, is he going to be exposed thing again, but that's a possibility. And, are things going to get worse with him, or is he going to start pulling himself out of this really dark corner he's in?
We're disappointed that they didn't jump more than 1 year ahead.
Back when Matt Weiner was saying he wanted to only do 5 seasons and end in 1970, I would have been disappointed, but now he's sort of being more open-ended. So I like the idea that we're not skipping over as much, because there's a lot of good stuff to be done. Plus, I like the actress who plays Sally, and the further ahead they went, they might have to ditch her. So if they only do a year at a time, they can keep her around.
Sally, Don's daughter.
Yeah.
So you're saying ditch her as in she's going to come
no,
to a
I'm
tragic
saying
end?
if they had come back in like 1966,
oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
she would have looked too young, and they would have had to get a different actress, and I like her.
So it would have been like a reverse Walt from Lost scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
You like that?
Yep.
I'm a little disappointed only because what happened in 1964 that could potentially be integrated with the show? So we had the Mississippi stuff, obviously, that they referenced. The political election was very interesting. I guess the civil rights thing, if they go down that road, they could bring that in, but it would be pretty tough to do with
well, they're going to get into 65 within an episode or two, because it usually is like each episode is about a month later than the one before it. So,
right.
I've kind of exhausted my historical research on the Rockefeller thing. I have not looked up too much about 65, but every season so far has climaxed with some sort of major world event that our characters are commenting on. Last year it was JFK. So I don't know what that would be in 65. I
have an idea.
What's that?
That was really the year that Vietnam started to become a big deal.
Yeah, I was going to say that. The first big battle, the one from We Were Soldiers, happened in 65.
Yeah. So maybe it wouldn't be a cast member that went to go
It'd be
fight
Joan's husband who goes to Vietnam, and hopefully he gets blown up, which would make me very happy.
That's a great call. Yeah, we get rid of Joan's husband. She's single again.
Yeah, exactly. And she's no longer with a rapist. So, win-win.
Can we officially call him a rapist, though?
Bill, that is absolutely rape. He pins her down. She tells him to stop. That's rape.
All right, you're right. Yeah, you're right. We need to get him off to Vietnam and then blown up by some mortar.
Yeah, that would be, or even fragged by his own men.
That would be good too. We also need. I wouldn't mind seeing Joan get involved with either Draper or Roger. Just a little dalliance, maybe a couple hotel room visits.
Well, I remember the episode last year with the lawnmower. There's that one scene with Joan and Don in the hospital, and it's like Ham and Christina Hendricks are just scorching together.
Yes.
I don't know that I would ever actually want to see them as a couple, but clearly if they did that, there would be a lot of chemistry there.
All right, so our best case scenario for this season is the husband goes off to Vietnam.
Yes.
Joan and Don Draper, both single, both a little jaded. Couple drinks one night at one of the hotels. What would be the hotel they go have a drink at?
Well, they're not at the Pierre anymore, so they're
the Pierre's out. Well, one of those, and maybe one thing leads to another. That'd be good.
That would certainly be one of the most attractive couples in the history of anything.
Although she was in the cover of Stars Without Makeup this week, which my wife buys gleefully every year, and no makeup. And my wife was like, "See, the redheads need a ton of makeup." I was like, "You really don't get catty with Joan. I'm not going to allow that."
Everybody loves Joan. My wife loves Joan, and my wife sometimes gets annoyed, like when she can tell I'm attracted to someone on TV. But even she loves Joan.
Joan, but Joan really hasn't parlayed it into anything other than this show, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, nobody has other than Ham. The trailer for the town looks awesome.
Yes. Yeah, and I think, and you look at that top 5 in that movie.
Yeah.
Ham, Affleck, Jeremy Renner, what's her face? Blake Lively, and then Rebecca Hall.
Yeah.
most people don't. She's not one of those where you know her name, but she's been in a ton of stuff. And if you're like, oh yeah, the girl from Frost Nixon, like she's been in a bunch of those. Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
Yeah.
Pretty good top 5.
Yeah, and I read that book, and as soon as I got done, I'm like, this will make a great movie for somebody.
Yeah.
So.
And also, I lived in Charlestown for 8 years, and it's there can never be enough Charlestown movies.
Oh yeah, so you'll have that thing where you're watching the entire movie and you're going, hey, I've been there. Hey, I've been there.
I'll be that guy. I'm going to be that guy with the whole theater. I'm just going to stand up and point to. It was one of those little towns though that you always felt like you were in a movie when you were walking around, like especially at night. And there's such a weird underbelly to the whole city that I do think it could make for an awesome movie. And also, has there ever been a bank robbery movie that at the very worst wasn't watchable?
I can't think of one off the top of my head. There was a bank robbery show called The Nine that was one of those attempts to rip off Lost that had a cool pilot and then failed, but I can't think of a movie.
And I got to say, The Nine might have worked if it hadn't been so close to Lost. Like, if it was coming this year and this was the season for The Nine, I think it has a better chance.
No, because I think that was one where the pilot was great, and then you get to the second episode and you realize there's nothing there. It's sort of like my fear with Lone Star. You can have a show with a great idea that can be done really well for an hour, and then there's just not enough story to tell.
Are you excited for the Emmys? Not really?
No, I hate the Emmys. I mean, I'm excited that like Coach and Mrs. Coach from Friday Night Lights finally got nominated, but they're not going to win. So, the Emmys are... Because the thing is you find, and you work in the business enough to know this, is for the most part the people who work in television don't watch television.
I know.
So the awards, both the nominations and the awards, are just randomly distributed.
Well, we were obviously devastated that 30 for 30 didn't get nominated. And when you learn about the whole process, and you can only send the complete DVDs, or you have to actually go online to watch the stuff, right?
I think for the nominations, it's not even based on screeners. Just people get a ballot at home and look at names and pick them out, and then once you're nominated, people submit like an episode.
I thought, though, you could go, if you weren't familiar with the show, they had some sort of online thing where you could go and watch them. Like
that may very well be.
Yeah. But when you think, like, and a lot of times these people are just getting the ballot, and they're, PBS, that sounds good. And I don't know if you have a newer product, especially like a documentary series, I don't know what else we could have done.
Yeah, no, it's always very hard for new stuff to break in because people get lazy. They will vote for this. They vote for they nominate things that they've heard of before. So a show has to just get a ton of hype for a new thing to break in, like Modern Family and Glee did this year. Right.
I emailed you after we didn't get nominated. I'm like, what the F happened? And I figured you'd be like, oh, my God, that's an outrage. And you're like, PBS, old people.
I've been outraged for so long that my outrage gene has just worn out.
I got that feeling from you. You're like, it happens.
You just got to say it's the Emmys.
Yeah.
You are making, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a guest on the show. People have read my reviews. You're making a great documentary series, and, that the Emmys couldn't nominate it says a whole lot more about the Emmys than it does about 30 for 30.
Yeah, it's pretty depressing. But, I think, what was the first year with Mad Men? Didn't Mad Men get boned over the first year?
No. Mad Men got enough hype that it got a ton of nominations.
Okay.
The Wire, I think, only ever got 2 nominations.
Great example.
So, whereas Flash Forward this year got 3. So now Flash Forward has had more Emmy nominations than The Wire ever did.
By the way, I'm not comparing 30 for 30 to The Wire, Mad Men. I'm just saying, it seems like there have been years when the Emmy doesn't really reflect what seems to be hitting. And especially, with The Wire. Season 4, I don't even think got nominated. Which I still think was the greatest season in the history of television.
It got nominated for writing for the finale and one other time, I think, maybe for casting. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
I'm tired of getting mad about Hall of Fames and Emmy nominations and All-Star Awards.
Yeah, but you got to adopt my attitude, which is what's good, so don't get yourself too invested in what other people say is good.
Yeah.
I know that there's a historical record aspect to it, but you can pride yourself on doing a show that's been great and that people seem to love. Even
yesterday with Andre Dawson, it's really? He's eligible in 2002. Obviously, his career didn't change one iota for 8 years, and now he's a Hall of Famer. I can see not getting in the first year, but the whole taking another 7 and then all of a sudden, like, you know what? He is a Hall of Famer. Like, what kind of process is that?
So if like Tim Raines or Blyleven get in, you're going to be outraged about that too.
Not outraged that they got in as much as how stupid that process is. And and the fact that the sports writers themselves are deciding. I actually think the Football Hall of Fame has the best process. These guys get in a room and they argue about it for like a 3-day weekend. Yeah. And they're making cases and they're shouting each other down. It sounds awesome. Like, it sounds like everything should be decided that way. Maybe the Emmys should be decided that way.
Yeah, I'm in the Television Critics Association, and we have our awards, and 30 for 30 was nominated for that. And even there, I sometimes look at the process and think, we could be doing this a lot better than we do. Yeah. So it's weird. You know, the year of The Wire Season 4, the show that won Program of the Year was Heroes.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to go. Alan Sepinwall, we'll see you on hitfix.com. As always, a pleasure.
Thanks, Bill.
One last note, in case you didn't know, we created BS Report pages and... why can't I speak? One more. One last note, in case you didn't know, we created a BS Report page. It has all of the latest podcasts and things, links to 3 years of podcasts, including a gigantic archive page. You can find it on ESPN Pod Center, or you can find it on my Twitter page, SportsGuy33, or you can find it on Sports Guys World because there's a link there. So check that out if you have not checked it out already. And please subscribe on iTunes if you can. That way you'll get every one of them. Coming back later in the week with a couple more podcasts. Until then.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
This concludes another installment of the BS Report. And with all the talk about sports, Bill Simmons neglected to mention this very important final thought. So many of your Subway favorites are $5 footlong subs, like a $5 footlong BLT. Try it with banana peppers, spicy jalapenos, and ranch dressing, all on freshly baked bread. Or a taste-tacular $5 footlong Black Forest ham. Enjoy it piled high with pickles, olives, crunchy cucumbers, and spicy Chipotle Southwest sauce. Subway $5 footlong subs all day, every day. Subway, eat fresh.